Prananda, Dinah Mulholland Adui. My name's Dinah Mulholland. I was the Labour candidate in the neighbouring constituency of Ceredigion. That's my CLP over there. I'm absolutely honoured to be standing here today. I'm honoured to be speaking to you all. So I'd like to talk a little bit about West Wales, about Preseli Pembs and about Ceredigion in particular. Preseli Pembs and Ceredigion share a couple of key features. They're both very, very rural constituencies, and they both also have quite shocking child poverty figures. It's a desperate mix to live in a rural area and be very poor. I'll tell you some of the local child poverty figures, and they may shock you. And actually bear in mind that these statistics are from 2 years ago, so they're going to be much higher now. Here in this ward, Haverfordwest Castle, the child poverty rate after housing costs was 38.93%. In Milford Hubberston Ward, it was 40.43%. In my constituency of Ceredigion, in Teifi Ward in Cardigan, just across the border of the constituency boundary, the child poverty rate is 43.31%. And up at the top of my sort of constituency in Rheidol Ward in Aberystwyth, it's 41.48%. And what that actually means in real terms is 4 out of 10 children in this constituency and in Ceredigion, in many of our wards, living below the poverty line. Now, that's a similar picture to much of the rest of the UK, but actually it's not strictly the same, because the Tories have cut back disproportionately here in Wales. They've cut back and cut back and cut back in real terms in our budget for Wales, and at the public services that should be protecting our communities, and at the vulnerable members of our communities. So we here in Wales have had a double whammy of austerity. And Stephen Crabb has been instrumental in the hollowing out of our rural infrastructure and in the deepening of rural isolation here in West Wales.
He's a liar.
And he's a liar.
He's corrupt and all.
Yes, indeed, he is. Now, funnily enough, Stephen Crabb and I actually share something in common, and I have to stress it's not our politics, but it is something that runs very deep in us both, I believe, and it is to do with child poverty. And as I'm sure you know, Stephen Crabb was brought up by his single-parent mother, who was in receipt of benefits. And my mum brought up 7 of us, and we were in receipt of benefits after she was deserted by our father, who paid nothing towards our support. We were also homeless for a while, and then we were housed by the council. Absolutely. There's a lot of us here who've lived that life. Now, I'm full of respect for my mother, and who has to be one of the most creative and resilient people that I've ever known. She is now, at the age of almost 79, a member of Momentum. And she is absolutely amazing. What she's done is she's somehow managed to instill in all of her children, in what was sometimes very, very desperate and very, very vulnerable times for us as a family, a sense in us that the future would be better. And unlike Stephen Crabb, who perceives the welfare system and the benefit system that supported his mother and himself as a slippery slope into a culture of welfare dependency, I believe that my family was incredibly lucky to have had access to benefits and to council housing, because they made us safe, and that allowed our resilience to grow. We cannot blame the tools that were created to prevent poverty for the culture that emerges from poverty itself. It is poverty and it is lack of hope that creates the culture of dependency. And I would like to finish by saying this, that one of the deepest and the most troubling legacies of austerity is how it seemed to have eroded our political resilience and our hopes as individuals for the future. It seemed like there was no more poetry in our souls. we seemed to have become austerity dependent. But it is not the case. While we were out campaigning in the general election in June, we all of us activists became aware of a shift in people's responses to the message of Labour and to Jeremy Corbyn. And it was at the point that the manifesto was leaked that it started. And as time went on, that positivity towards Corbyn and Labour and that message of hope grew, and people began to enthuse on the doorstep. I heard Chris Williamson MP speaking the other day, and he described this doorstep phenomena as being like being in Narnia when the White Witch dies and the ice starts melting and colour comes back to the world. Now, yesterday I was talking to my daughter's head teacher, and she was telling me how difficult it is in her school, that they have no funds to provide anything other than core subjects, that it's not possible to provide drama at GCSE, for example. Then she said something to me which really struck me. She said, when Corbyn gets in, it will be different. Yeah. That's it. She didn't say if, she said when. Look at us here today, hundreds of us. Stephen Crabb, watch us waking up. We, the many, are rising like lions. Thank you, everyone. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Thank you, Dinah.